Why, hello there, Knifestow here. I do hope this video finds you well, and I'm bringing you a full review today. So, it's a bit of a longer video. The summary, which was a shorter version of this, a little more compact, will be coming out in a week or two. But for today, we're going into full depth, full specs, longer form content. This is the Molsect Shuttle. And it's very strikingly designed knife, and there's no doubt about that. Let us get right into specs, jump straight into specs, so we can get that out of the way and start talking about this knife. Maybe I'll make the review a little bit shorter if I do that. Comparison knives are the small CVV Elementum and the full-size Conspirator. As you can plainly see, it is a bit smaller than the Conspirator. Conspirator ends here-ish, and yeah, there's a bit of a distance there. I, of course, totally forgot to bring out the actual... Wow, this is going well. I totally forgot to bring out the tape measure, so... Actual size, 3 3/8 of a blade, so yeah, I'm going to call that a full size knife and not like a medium. Medium for me is about 3 1/4. While small is anything about 3 inches or under. Overall, just shy of 8 inches overall, so not a huge knife, not a ridiculously room, like, it's not taking up a ton of room in the pocket. The real estate is relatively minimal. It is also not an overly thick knife. It is pretty considerably thinner than the Conspirator here. And height-wise, it's not doing anything special. I mean, it's reasonably tall. I mean, it's kind of... I think it's taller than the Conspirator. If you look from about here to here, is taller than the average spot on the Conspirator. But not by much, and it's not as tall as the Conspirator with the flipper tab. So, pretty reasonable. Our final size comparison is for grip length, and it's the double-A batteries. And as you can see, the basic spot on the handle has almost 2 double-A batteries, plus you have a choil. So, pretty decent on the actual grip length and place to put your hands. That's on grams. That would throw me off pretty well. 3.43 ounces. Pretty light. Almost an ounce an inch. So your ratios are pretty good. This is not bad considering this is aluminum and steel. And a little gunky in there. The hardware check is T8 all around. Very nice. Love to see that, including the pocket clip. Everything, actually, including the thumb stud, is T8. They did that on the Molsect old-fashioned as well. You can probably see the design language. In fact, I'm going to keep that around because we're going to talk about that a little bit too. I spoke about this knife in the Molsect old-fashioned review, which you can find on the channel. But I'm going to do the same here. And that's in millimeters today, so that's not what I want. Alright, calipers out. Thickness. 458 thousandths. Yeah, that's pretty thin. It's almost as thin as the CVV Elementum. And the scales have a slight contour to them. It's hard to see, but it is a very slight contour. 100 thousandths, almost on the dot, for blade stock thickness. It is very thin. And behind the edge should be very, very thin as well. Geometry here should be pretty darn good. Yeah, 11 thousandths-ish behind the edge, 11, 12 thousandths behind the edge. Very thin, flat grind, even though it doesn't have like the longest distance to drop. It's pretty darn thin. It gets a little bit thicker up there, but it's quite thin. It is a very slicey knife. Both of the Molsect knives have been very good cutters. Which, I mean, they're knives. They should be. That's kind of the objective here, right? I believe we're done with specs. Look at that. A little earlier and faster today. So, now that we're done with that, let's just move into looking at this knife. What do we got? We got 14C28N blade steel. It says it right there. The only thing on the blade is the Molsect and the blade steel, which is nice, very minimal. And this logo is fine. I don't mind it there. Could be there even, but who cares? Well, they kind of did the pivot backwards. Normally you see the tooling on this side, but whatever. I already mentioned the contoured aluminum scales on this one, and contrasting, probably also aluminum backspacer. There is steel liners on both sides. They are full-length body liners that have been milled pretty substantially for some weight reduction. That's going to bother me if that stays in there. What is that? Yoink. This knife is a crossbar lock, obviously. On bearings, also pretty obviously. And I have to say, it is pretty luxurious. It definitely feels like a quality bearing crossbar lock setup, like sometimes on budget knives, which this is just about a budget knife. This is right on the edge. This is, what did I pick this up for? $78? I think I picked this up for. I draw the line of budget knives for $75, so just get the price out of the way. It's pretty reasonably priced. And for budget knives, sometimes you can get some kind of funkiness when it comes to crossbar locks, like some roll. This is very like smooth and very glassy. It's very, very, very consistent. In fact, just the bearings themselves are very, very smooth and very consistent. In fact, they barely feel like they're there. So, and this thing sort of, as you can see, just sort of really just sucks itself back in. So that aspect of the crossbar lock works really, really well. They also have these holes in here, which are for adjusting the springs coming off the crossbar lock to increase or decrease the tension, depending on where you put it in the placement. Further away, less tension. Now, we come to the first issue on this knife. There are a couple. They're not substantial issues. They're not like, oh, this is objectively bad because of it, but they are, in my opinion, issues. So let's just talk about it. And that is, the crossbar lock is very, very weak. It does cast out pretty well because of how smooth and consistent it is, but you can definitely feel it. It is very weak, and I've actually moved the springs from their initial starting position all the way forward. So it should have as much tension as you can get on this knife, and it has pretty little. Like, this is not a satisfying flick at all. In fact, let's see. Yeah, I can definitely whip this thing out pretty easily with just some force. Now, that said, is that all that different from some crossbar locks? No. But I also associate that with either, you know, crossbar locks on washers or cheaper, weaker ones. This is not... The quality of the actual action is really high, but the tension and execution on the crossbar and its springs, not on the level of something like Kaiser, who does a really good job with theirs. So that's something to note. I mean, does it work? Yeah, like I said, it's not technically a problem. It's just not. It's less than desirable for me, and in my opinion. I will say that the actual way the crossbar hooks in is pretty nice, where it slots in between the tang, so it's not just on top of the tang, so it should really give it quite a bit of strength. I mean, crossbar locks are known for having some strength in general, but this thing has basically, you know, a grip on this thing that a lot of crossbars where they don't have that top part on the sitting over the bar itself. Let's see if I can find an example. This right here, Benchmade. Hello, Benchmade Barrage. The bar slots over top of the tang, which makes it very strong, mind you. Oh, that screwed with me for a second there. When I slow rolled it out there, it didn't lock in very well, but then I realized I just sort of did that, so of course it didn't lock in. Yeah, where was I? You've just got the tang sitting underneath the bar. This one's got two pieces of steel above and below that really kind of hold it in place, so it should be quite strong, regardless of the bar not feeling like it has a whole lot of tension on it. It also has a tiniest little bit of stick right there, which is, I mean, very possibly oil. I can see some gunk on the bar, but I actually don't even mind that. It means it's lodging in pretty good, so no complaints there. The knife is thumb stud only, and fortunately they are actually pretty good thumb studs. They're kind of just barrels, but they've got some ribbing on them, and they do work for the flick and the reverse flick. The reverse flick is a little bit tough. I mean, I always find reverse flicking on crossbar lock knives to be questionable because I like to put my finger right where the crossbar is, and you can't do that. This is probably one of the better ones where you can get below it and still throw it out without really worrying about it, but it is what it is. There is some jimping on the blade. It feels aggressive, but it's not really super functional, to be completely honest with you. And then the blade itself is, of course, a clip point. In fact, there's a slight trailing point on this one with a recurve underneath it, which is very similar to the old-fashioned, not quite as pronounced on the old-fashioned, mind you. But it's got a kind of aggressive blade shape, but you can get good access to the tip. It's thin behind the edge. The plunge grind is excellent. The sharpening choil is amazing. You're going to have tons of life. Nice thin blade. Functional tip usage. In fact, despite the slight trail, you can definitely still get in pretty easily with the tip. It's not super high in relation to the pivot. The blade shape is odd. It's kind of aggressive, but kind of funny looking at the same time, so yeah. I'm all here for it. I like some interesting stuff, especially when it still maintains its utilitarian. If it was just like a super Persian, wouldn't get good access to the tip or anything like that, and you definitely have it here without going really too high, because they push the belly back a bit. This much recurve, honestly, when you actually look at how much is there, even though it looks like a lot because of the flow of the blade, it's probably not going to be very hard to sharpen. I mean, some of the recurve will come out over time, but unless you really know what you're doing. On like a fixed angle system, you could probably still do this without getting like the super thin stones. It would just take away the recurve a little faster. Handles are very nicely smoothed. However, this is where we start to run into the second issue with this knife. And this is where this knife in particular comes into comparison. One of the things that struck me about this knife is this knife has a lot of hard angles, the old-fashioned here. And it really looks like it would be uncomfortable, because they did these big chamfers but left these really severe, sharp, almost edges around certain parts of it. And yet, despite that, in my hand, your mileage may vary, but in my hand, this is bizarrely comfortable. Like, it doesn't make sense. It looks like it should be less comfortable than it is. It just works. These larger chamfers are in just the right position to alleviate pressure off of those really hard edges. So it's really smartly designed, even if you really grip into this thing. This thing is very comfortable. It's like it's just thick enough, it's just placed right. This one looks like it's nice and rounded. It looks like much better. And these chamfers are good back here, by the way. However, these larger chamfers, they kind of took styling cues from this one and tried to do the same thing. Doesn't work here. The basic grip position you're fine. You're comfortable. It's good. But the choke-up position on this, the idea of alleviating these severe angles with large chamfers in the choke-up position did not work, in my opinion. It's not bad. Like, you're not going to be uncomfortable here if you're just doing real light, nice, simple EDC stuff. But when you grip into this, like actually grip into it a bit, these angles and the thickness, as you can see how thin it gets because of that large chamfer right there, the choke-up position in this is not the most comfortable thing in the world. It's not bad, like I said. Light duty, just simple cutting things, you're just sitting there and you're fine. But it's when you actually pull into it and grip into it just a little bit, you start feeling these edges. It's like, this one looks like it should be way better than it is, and it's slightly worse, while this one looks like it should be horrifying. Like, I can't describe why this works as well as it does, but it does. Well, I kind of did. It's these chamfers that alleviate pressure on these otherwise unpleasant edges that are just placed perfectly, and then these chamfers are just soft enough and rounded enough that they compensate somehow. They clearly tried to do something similar with parts of this one. Did not quite hit it. In fact, if you really push into this knife up here, and you push into that can be a little uncomfortable right back there. I mean, you're fine back here, but if you really grip into it, it's just this area right here where they did these thin chamfers. Well, these are fine, but this right there, it's kind of strange. That said, again, it's fine. You can use it. It's still functional. I just have to point it out because it's odd. These could have just been, or should have been, rounded a little bit more, I think. Just not the greatest comfortable choke up. It's a shame. There is a lanyard hole, by the way, and since we're moving on, there is a titanium milled pocket clip. It is not reversible, despite this being an ambidextrous lock. Pocket clip is not reversible, which I think is a major miss. And the pocket clip is being... the lanyard hole is being prioritized over the pocket clip, pushing the whole thing a little bit lower. Actually... yeah. And that comes to the other slight ergonomic thing. This pocket clip is kind of weird. It hugs the bottom, and it wouldn't be bad if it just didn't, come back down so close to the edge. It's very noticeable. It's not uncomfortable, but it's very present because it comes down so close to this area right here. You definitely feel and know that you're sitting on it. I kind of just think, see where it kind of sits in my hand? I personally think if they had just went the opposite way and brought it out here and then made it go up like this, so it sat right in the middle, it would probably be more comfortable. That might bring you in contact with these odd chamfers that they did on the back end a little bit more, but I don't think it really would. But it just doesn't sit right in the center point of your hand where you kind of want it to. I'd like it to sit, basically. Let's see if we can get it. It sits there. I'd like it to sit right here, right next to where it's actually sitting, so I can cup it better in my hand. So some strange decisions on the ergos in certain aspects of this one. And I take it back. That's not really being prioritized. This part of the clip is fine. It's mostly when it comes back down that it gets weird. The clip's functioning, however, is actually quite good. It's decently tall enough. It's almost deep carry, despite being, a milled pocket clip. Pretty easy in and out of the pocket. Yes, it's a bit slick because of the aluminum, but you can get a little bit of traction off the lanyard hole and the screws a little bit here. It's not super hard to get in and out of the pocket. And the actual pocket clip up here works quite well. I just wish it was, angled differently. And I also wish that they left it more neutral. If they left it more neutral, they would have a lot easier time just milling out a spot here and making it reversible. So you can actually get this knife for left-handed people because, I mean, it's a crossbar lock. There's no reason it shouldn't be both ways. You can argue if you get a liner lock or something like that, do you need a left-handed version? Do you just put a left-handed slot for the clip? But a crossbar lock is, like I said, completely ambidextrous, and there's no reason for it not to have that on this. So, yeah, I think we're about done here, and I have to say, it's not a bad knife. It's an interesting styled knife. It's a fun knife. It's much like the old-fashioned here. It has its very distinct look to it. And Molsect is definitely doing some good stuff. It seems like they've got a couple other knives that are out and coming out that look like they're going to be either really interesting or really decent. They're relatively new on the scene, and they're doing some fun stuff. I mean, you can't look at this thing and say it's not it's not fun, but strangely enough, I think the old-fashioned is just better. There's definitely some misses here on some of these cues. And just to summarize, it's the pocket clip, the choke position, and the strength of the crossbar that are the problem issues here. Despite that, it's still a good knife. Still functions well, still does knife things well, still is probably pretty appropriately priced for what you're getting here, and the execution of the actual, like, quality on these things, even if they're a little bit oddly designed, is there. It is centered. There's no play. In fact, there's no up and down, nothing. It's rock solid. So, recommendable, yes, but with the caveat of knowing what you're getting into, because it's not as excellently designed as its sibling. So, yep, that'll end things here for me for the Molsect Shuttle, and hopefully you got something of value out of this video. If you were thinking about this knife, or you're thinking about it still or now, it's important to point things out that could be relevant to you, even if I'm not trying to say that they're like objectively bad or anything like that. They just might come into play. So, I will end things and say thank you for watching. Consider liking and subscribing. That's about it. See you later.